Hi, I'm Chris Ruff, Director of the Office of Ministries and Social Concerns for the Diocese of La Crosse. And we're doing a series of interviews, little short interviews on parasocial ministry in the various parishes of the diocese, and just showing how the love of Christ is manifested in our people. And sometimes that's to our neighbor in need just across the street, and sometimes it might be to our neighbor in need actually across the world. So today I'm here with Romy Wagner and Don Ryder, two parishioners of St. Anne's in Wausau, and they're going to talk a little bit about a really phenomenal and quite inspiring and large project that they're involved with called the Kenya Water Project. So Romy, maybe I'll turn to you first. Just tell us just a little bit about what this project is.
Thank you. We furnish clean water to over 15,000 human beings a day. Human beings that normally wouldn't have clean water, that would have an infant mortality rate as high as 50% at 2 weeks after birth. They are the Maasai tribe of Kenya. You'd maybe know them because of their tall, their bright clothes that they wear, and they're herders by trade.
Okay, so I'm sure a lot of people would want to know, how did you ever get started with such an enterprise as this? And I think, Don, you were going to share a little bit about how this all began.
Sure. Romy and I first went to Africa and with a group from St. Matthew's in Wausau, Helping Hands. And we were involved in building a church, helping the Kikuyu tribe build a Catholic church there. And when we completed the church, along with all the other people that helped, Romy and I and a few of us took a side trip to visit the Maasai out in the Rift Valley. And so that was our first introduction to the Maasai. And we returned here then to our homes in Wausau. And it was maybe 6-9 months later, I received an email from Vatican City. Now this was pretty strange to me because I had never been in contact with the Vatican City. But this cardinal sent this email to me, and it talked about, in general, about this drought conditions in Kenya, and specifically he mentioned the Maasai. Now, since we were aware of the Maasai, I thought, wow, I'm going to look into this a little bit. I had a Maasai contact, and I contacted that individual, and he in fact confirmed that yes, the drought over there had been going on for some time, and they had lost 60% of their cattle already. Infant mortality rate, as Romy already mentioned, was as high as 50%. It was really hitting the elderly and the sick, and of course the very, very young. So as part of my routine, we have a little prayer room at home, and I'm in there one evening, and ordinarily I enter into contemplation. This night I went in and I sat down and I just opened the Bible randomly, which I seldom do that. However, I opened it up and it opened to John, and Jesus is hanging on the cross. And I began reading that, and I hear the words Jesus spoke from the cross, "I thirst." And it hits me. The passion continues today in our Maasai sisters and brothers. I closed the Bible and just sat there. And then these thoughts started coming to me. Don, you need to do something about this. And I acknowledged that. I said, yeah, I should. Okay. And it keeps haunting me. No, Don, you really need to do something about this. And I'm getting uncomfortable. I said, yeah, I know I should, but what could I possibly do? There's nothing I could do from where I live. So it kept coming to me, no, you need to do something about this. Well, I got pretty uncomfortable with that. So frankly, I cut my prayer off for the evening. And I didn't return to the prayer room for 3 days, kind of waiting for this to blow over. So I come back in. Again, I sit down and I quietly, and I open the Bible, deliberately avoiding St. John's writings. It opens up randomly to Matthew. and I forget the verse. I think it's 25 something or other. It starts out. I begin reading. When I was hungry, you gave me to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me to drink. And bam, it hits me again. And I sit there, listening. The thoughts came to me that, you know, where would we be if Mary, when the angel Gabriel came to her and asked her to be the mother of God, if she would have said no? Where would we be? And as I thought of that, there was only one reply that I then could have, which would be like Mary and simply say yes to God. So I said, yes, God, I will. But, God, just remember, this is your project. It's not my project. You need to open the doors because I'm uncomfortable doing this, and I don't know anything about how to raise funds. I don't know anything about how to do this at all.
So you had a sense that God was calling you to something, and that you felt an inner drive that I have to say yes, but now somehow God's got to show me the way. So then what happened? How did he show you the way?
That's exactly what happened.
What was the step?
This is where Romy comes in. And Romy, you tell them a little bit about it.
Well, as Don said, we met on a humanitarian project and went to Kenya to build that church. But we're sitting on a mountaintop in Jamaica. We hadn't met each other, and we found out we had a lot of similarities. We're both from families of 13 kids. We got married on the same day. We have the same number of children. We have so many other, our dads both died at the age of 62. We belong to the same parish in Wausau, Wisconsin, St. Anne's Parish. We went to different masses, but we had all these things drawing us together. So in the back of my mind, after spending time in Kenya and seeing the Maasai, I too was haunted, but in a different way. As we went to visit the Maasai villages, the women and the girls were not there. We'd ask where they were. The men and the boys would herd. It turns out the women and the girls, as soon as they were old enough to, would walk up to 15 kilometers to draw water every 3 days from a dirty puddle of water that had dead animals at times floating in it. Well, we tracked them down, and a picture haunts me to this day of mothers carrying babies, drawing water from a puddle that has a dead animal in it, drinking, refreshing themselves, washing their clothes. And that picture kept haunting me. We had to do something, but what? After a few months in the back of church, Don and I bumped into each other. And as I was thinking, you know, I have to do something, Don relays his story to me. And the fact that I do things with kids all over the world, and I pictured this infant mortality rate of up to 50% to 2 weeks old, that those wouldn't be smiles that were shared with everyone else. These poor babies, these young kids that were dying, that was terrible. We should do something. We decided if we were like everyone else and didn't, we'd be denying what we were directed to. So we started to form a foundation to raise money to drill these wells. And we started. And through the contact Don had made, our first well project took place in Kabuku, Kenya, just outside of Ngong. Well, we worked through the Catholic diocese there. We've made a wonderful friend, a lifelong friend in Bishop Cornelius Schilder. He opened his house to us as we went over there and really guided us through local priests to find the place, and we drilled our first well. We not only drilled a well for water for the humans, but we also did it in the middle of 5 of their bomas or locations and formed a co-op between the 5 so that they own the water site as a group. We taught them to cooperatively manage that. We taught them drip irrigation farming to raise corn, beans, and cabbages. so that they'd have some more nutrition in their diet. We taught them the things that would help them survive. We sent 2 of the local young men off to Nairobi to school to learn how to maintain. There's no electricity there either. We had to buy a diesel motor to run the electric generator to run the pumps. We had to get someone trained to be there to do that. We brought this knowledge all into them and challenged them to be better for it.
Wow.
And that project took us about 3 years.
Well, so really, from what you're saying, you step into a situation of great complexity, and really you have to figure out kind of one piece at a time and put it all together and make it work. And but if God has called you to this, then He's going to supply you with each step along the way what you're going to need, and even without electricity or whatever.
And that truly was my business instincts that I bring to this. Having retired from a large company, being in manufacturing, sales, and things, knowing how to ask people for, if you don't ask for something free, you'll always pay for it. Bringing that aspect to speaking in front of groups, putting programs together. That's how we determined to raise the money $1 at a time.
So what's the St. Anne's connection here? In the beginning, and maybe I know it's grown beyond from what you said to me before we started this. It's grown actually quite large, but obviously there's a you're St. Anne's parishioners, we know that, but maybe say a little about that.
Well, Father Steve Bryce, our pastor there, got behind this immediately and talked about it at masses, and the whole parish got behind it. And it spread out even into the city and beyond, really from coast to coast and border to border. People would learn about this and then send in contributions to the community foundation in north central Wisconsin there in Wausau.
And the St. Anne's school kids. Another side of the program is to the environmentally sound issues of, we put a program in with the school children at St. Anne's, and we planted a tree with them and took pictures of it. And when we went back with their donation to Kenya, with the school children there, we planted a tree and traded pictures back and forth to make a connection to the environment. But truly, St. Anne's Parish, all the different activities of the parish gave us the spark to get going and still have us in their arms. The Fatima Council there and the ladies of the parish just smile when they see us.
That's great.
And St. Michael's Church too.
St. Michael's, good.
Yes. And the middle school as well.
Okay.
So the local
wonderful
Catholic school is certainly
the parishes
got
and schools locally. Wonderful. And it's now it's gotten bigger, and you got what are some of your plans now in terms of both of the expansion of the wells, the project, also in terms of maybe how you're presenting it with a website or Facebook or whatever.
It's interesting that we went at it to furnish water to this Kabuku community area, and we did that. And Father John Fortune, our Irish priest friend from Kenya, said, "Now I'm going to show you where your next well is going to be." And we said, "Yeah, that's cool." By this time, Don and I had said our motto was, "We'll always be working on a well," instead of one. So he takes us into the Rift Valley farther, and we find a place that has an infirmary that a doctor shows up once every couple of weeks. They have a school of 900 children that have no water. They have an old windmill that's all dilapidated and laying down. They have a well that needs reconditioning. So we decided to take this on, and we grew a little bigger to where we cleaned up the well, built the windmill so they didn't have to have an electric, the gas or diesel engine. So there was significant wind there at night. So the windmill was a perfect addition. But then in order to just bring water to the surface for the humans and the animals, we decided to take it a step farther. The locals knew where there was a 200,000 liter tank not being used, a stone tank. They spent 2 years taking it apart a stone at a time and bringing it to this location. We rebuilt that tank on the top of a hill.
Wow.
Filled the tank. We ran pipes down to the school.
Oh my goodness.
We ran pipes down to the infirmary with the ideas maybe someday it would be a hospital.
Now, how many of you are doing all of this?
2 of us.
2 of you are doing all of this.
And Father Fortune.
Oh my gosh.
But it's so exciting yet thinking about it that within a year now, in the last 4 months, Don, I think
Yes.
Father Fortune reports to us that the government has decided to, in fact, expand the infirmary, make it an 8-bedroom hospital, staff it with a doctor and a nurse every day. So it's beyond our wildest dreams. And those are the 2 projects we have completed right now. And of course, Father Fortune then tells us, now here's what you're going to do next. And I turn it over to Don for that.
So Romy and I, working with Father John, come up with another proposal to provide water to 2 other locations. And then another organization came to Father John and said, we'd like to work with you on a water project. And he said, well, I'm working with these folks from Wausau, Wisconsin. Would you be interested in partnering with them? And they said, well, let us see the proposal. And they reviewed the proposal and they said, well, we really like this, but we were thinking something maybe 5 or 6 times this size. They said, Father John, would you put together a proposal a little larger? So Father John talks to us. He puts together a proposal which essentially replicates what we had put together by 5 or 6 times. Submitted that to this organization, and they evaluated it, and they decided, yes, we will fund this and work with the people from Wausau. So this project is so exciting. It involves 10 locations. We have already begun work on it by ordering the stone for the first 2 locations, the stone for the tanks, 220,000 liter tanks that we'll be building there. And so in addition to these 10 locations where there'll be new tanks, there are 5 other tanks already over there in different areas that we will refurbish. And we have identified a water source up in the mountains because we can't drill in the Rift Valley in this location because it's volcanic there. So by gravity, we will be feeding the water down from the mountains to these 10, now 15 different tanks. This will supply water to between 50 and 60,000 people and hundreds of thousands of head of livestock. So this is tremendous. It's grown from 1 location to now 10, 15 locations.
And I trust there'll be more than just 2 of you working on that phase of the project. Is that
An
fair to say?
important thing there, Chris, is we do the fundraising and the thinking. Father John is our on-site, feet on the ground, and part of what we're doing, it's very important to us that the locals do the work. We
That's
are
wonderful.
we are
That's
not
wonderful.
hiring people to come in and build the tanks. They insist on doing it themselves. That's why it takes us 2 to 3 years to do a project. But one of the things that Don alluded to was this is a volcanic plate where these tanks are going in now. There is no way we can drill wells there. But one thing we're also doing, we're adding to it, is greenhouses. How many greenhouses are we? We're building greenhouses.
Right now, we're planning on putting in 6 greenhouses. And then these areas we will be fencing as well. So this is very exciting. I would like to bring in one other thought, though, that we are always open to other organizations working with us. And I'd like to cite one, and that is the youth of the Secular Franciscan Order. And they have been very instrumental in raising over $20,000, which helped enable us to complete the water project at Sekeri. And then there were funds left over, which enabled us to pay for the first load of stone for this next phase, which includes these 10 locations.
And also an important part is the Catholic churches that have been built. At each of these locations, Father John has been able to build a church proper and evangelize, and now has 2 masses. It may not sound like much to us here, but to have 2 masses a month, is it? Or a mass every 2 months? Or
2 masses a month.
2 masses a month at Security, our second place with the windmill. And that there are Catholic churches formed there also.
Well, it's kind of exciting when you mention, say, Cary and the Catholic Church there. Father John Fortune obtained money from the Vatican to build a church at Cary. This is where the site of our second water project. And he built the church, he got the church built, but it wasn't furnished. So we provided monies to furnish that. And then we asked Father John, have you named this church yet? And he said, well, no, we haven't. So we said, well, would you consider naming it St. Francis of Assisi? And within a week, I got a reply back, and he said, the new church will be called St. Francis of Assisi. Mm-hmm. So we think this is wonderful. I mean, the youth, the Catholic youth, the secular Franciscan Catholic youth have been tremendous here. And I think this is just such a tribute to them.
Oh, that's great.
It's wonderful.
I'd like to ask you, as you do these projects, I'm just trying to imagine the faces of the people, the lives of the people that have been touched by this. Would you say just a little bit about, the Maasai, what sort of people they are, what this has meant to them, how you see it reflected in their lives and on their faces?
One story I like to relate is, and you may see a picture off the later on, but they never saw clean water. They'd see their reflection in the water in the tanks when we pumped it up, and were actually afraid of it. The children had never played in clean water, and the parents just never allowed them to do these things. Water had a purpose. How dirty do your clothes have to get before you have to wash them in dirty, muddy water? So the fact they wouldn't drink the water until we went back there and ceremoniously drank it with them, it was just amazing. And as soon as they saw what the water was and what it tasted like, people stopped looking Don and I in the eye. They walked with their heads down whenever we were around, because they held us in such high regard for bringing them water. And that just moves me to tears almost every time. And when Father John talks to us about how 10 babies were born in a certain time, in Romy, all 10 of them are still alive today. The smiles, again, if a child dies, those smiles are not shared later in life. And that to me is what it's all about.
And for us, we consider this a great privilege to be part of this effort to bring water to our Maasai sisters and brothers.
Oh, that's great.
You know, an important thing too we got to add here, Don, is 100% of the funds that are donated to this project go to the water projects. Don and my expenses are paid out of our own pockets when we go back. We guarantee 100% of the tax deductible donations to go into the water projects. That's very important to us.
Well, and I think we were talking before that you have a laser focus on providing water. And so, there's a temptation sometimes to get all interlinked with our organizations that are funding this and they're funding that. And you wonder, gee, as a Catholic, what am I going to be involved in? Is it going to be, but you're keeping a laser focus on your sole goal is providing water, I guess greenhouses too, but nourishment. And right. That's it. And you're not involved in anything else or anything questionable of any kind. So I think
absolutely
that should be very reassuring to people.
Well, what is wonderful that we've seen too is the very first location at Kimuku. The people there now feel empowered, and they have looked into now beginning to raise atropha trees, which grow a nut about the size of a golf ball. And they will be able to crush that nut, and that oil can be used to operate the diesel engines. So they are ingenious as well. All they need is just a little bit of help, something as simple and as basic as good, clean water.
And the nut shell becomes fuel for their cooking fires. As we worked with them, it's important to us. We're helping them become better Kenyans. We're not trying to Americanize them.
That's wonderful.
But truly, with the help of the Catholic parishes that we're with in the Catholic Diocese of Nagong, that's what's making this happen.
That's wonderful. And well, it's a credit certainly to you, gentlemen, a credit to the support of your parish, St. Anne's. And I think you've been written up in the Catholic Times a bit as well. And what we want to do more, we want to make you better known. And certainly this interview is a part of doing that. If people would like to learn more or donate, or what would be contact information or website information that they would want?
An important thing that, being who we are, of course our kids give us direction on technology, and it's time for us to create a website, to create a Facebook page, and those are coming. But through St. Anne's Parish, which can be reached online, or through the Community Foundation of North Central Wisconsin, donations can be made through those two sources.
Okay, and we'll get the information up on the screen for phone numbers and that sort of thing. So,
you know, Chris, it's not limited to us Catholics, though. We have been invited to Methodist churches, Lutheran churches, many different churches, and secular organizations. So this is just a human thing.
Yes.
People see the need and say, yeah, that's worthwhile. You know, I'd like to do something. And every little bit helps.
Well, it's just very inspiring to me that, you know, this kind of started a trip, an initial effort to build a church, I guess, was kind of a thing. And then a moment with God in Scripture, and a little tap on the shoulder that wouldn't go away, and God just saying, trust me, you know, and you said yes, and you guys met, and, you know, and he just keeps pouring graces upon it. So our prayers are with you. Hopefully some donations will be coming your way in addition, just to seeing the beautiful work that you're doing. So thank you for coming and sharing about it.
I appreciate, I appreciate the opportunity whenever we get a chance to speak about this, but most of all, prayers are what makes things happen. Please pray for the people of Kenya. Pray for your neighbors. Pray for your friends. And everything will work out.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks.